Hello everybody, and welcome to What's New with the Google Drive SDK 1 year later. My name is Nicolas. I'm a developer advocate. I've been working on Google Drive, pretty much since we launched Google Drive about a year ago. So during this session, we're going to, have a look at what happened to the Google Drive SDK since we launched it, basically up until today. So as I said, we launched Google Drive about a year ago, and when we launched Google Drive, we had several goals in mind. So, of course, one of the goals was to, offer to our users a way to, back up all of the files that are in their desktop and, upload it online and, share their files with their friends, for example. So that's pretty much what people expected from a service like Google Drive. But that was actually not the main goal. The main goal was really to make Google Drive a pretty central place, on the web platform. And we'll see that in just a second. So you guys all know now that the web is really a platform, right? You're all using web apps, for instance. I know I have moved online for a lot of my work needs. For example, I use Google Sheet, Google Spreadsheet, Google Sheet, Google Docs. That's the old name. Google Slides, pretty much every day now, and there's a lot more that you can do online. You can, find really nice image editors online. I've started using, for example, a online development environment lately. You can fax files online. You can actually listen to music online. So my point is, there's now a lot of, very high quality web apps that you can find and use, and we see this trend where people are really moving away from the desktop and really started doing more and more things online. So as people are really moving online, they wanted to, have a place to basically keep all of their files online, and that's why we launched Google Drive. It's really to provide our users a place to, manage and organize all of their files online. But not only that, it's really also a place for your favorite web apps to be able to write files, on your Google Drive, have a place to write and read files, basically. And that's also why we built the Google Drive SDK. It's really to basically offer the web platform a place for your web apps. Basically offer, the web platform a file system, basically. So that's really the important message here is Google Drive is really the file system for the web platform. And the SDK, it's pretty much the programmatic interface to this file system. So we really wanted to make the SDK a really easy to use, easy to integrate user experience. So as you'll see, we wanted to make it basically pretty much as easy to integrate as a desktop application would today integrate with a local file system, basically. And we actually didn't want to stop there. We wanted to not only make it as easy for web application to use the this web file system that the Drive SDK is, but we also wanted to use some of the collaboration and security features that are available on the web today to make it basically more powerful and more secure that if your app was not on the cloud. So when we launched Google Drive, of course, what was available is a programmatic way to access and manage files. That's really the API part of our SDK. So with the Google Drive API, you can basically do all of the things that you would expect from a file system. You can manage, read, write files. You can delete files. You can create files on Google Drive. All that is using a REST API. It's using also OAuth 2.0 for our authorization mechanism. So this is all pretty much expected from a file system, from a data web API that Google could provide, right? One thing that's pretty special, though, is one of the security features that we launched with Google Drive a year ago is there's basically a way for applications to restrict themselves to only gain access to the files they have either created or the files that the user has manually opened through the Drive user interface. We'll see how that's possible in just a second. And this is actually, very, very convenient for users, right? Because the application doesn't gain access to the entire Google Drive, at least not programmatically. they're not restricted to only a subfolder, like sometimes it's done here. The user can potentially open any of the files that is in the user's drive with an app, but without giving it, the access to files that could be, potentially you wouldn't want to give, access to applications out there. So that brings us to the other very important features that was launched with Google Drive a year ago, is the ability for application to deeply integrate with the user interface, with basically the user interface of the Drive file explorer. So basically how it works is apps can register to open certain file types. For example, a user could go in his Drive and try to open that photo picture here, vacation photo that you see on the screen here with PicMonkey or Pixlr Editor. If you don't know what PicMonkey or Pixlr Editor is, these are pretty powerful image editors that are online, that you can use online, and that have integrated with Google Drive, right? So basically how it works is the user is going to connect his Google Drive apps to his Google Drive enabled applications to Google Drive, right? And how he can do that, he can basically go to his Drive and directly browse all of the applications that are Google Drive compatible, that are available today. So he will simply go to his Create menu, click on Connect More Apps, and he will be able to browse and search all of these Google Drive compatible apps. So there's apps like AutoCAD, for example. There are music players. There are diagramming applications. Photo editors. There's a lot you can do right now, and we're going to have a look at one of them called HelloFax, who allows you to very easily fax documents. And they've done a pretty good job on their Google Drive integration. So this is my Drive. There's only a few documents. And what I want to do is I want to fax that PDF here that's on my screen. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to look for HelloFax. Simply have to search the kind of embedded app store that's inside Google Drive here. I'm going to connect HelloFax, and I get a confirmation dialog. And then what I can do as a user is right-click, open with, select HelloFax. Now, HelloFax is part of the options to open that type of file, PDF. Since it's the first time I'm running HelloFax from Drive, I get this OAuth2 confirmation dialog, just basically granting HelloFax access to my Google Drive. Now I got redirected to HelloFax. HelloFax has these two features. One is online signature management feature. The other one is their faxing feature, which I want to use. And as you can see here, HelloFax is pulling my PDF, basically. It's a very simple, very small PDF. Just says hello. And that's it. HelloFax has my PDF. I can now use HelloFax to fax that PDF. Could enter any bogus phone number. It's going to go to Austria somewhere. And that's it. HelloFax is actually trying to send my PDF to this number I entered. So HelloFax does a lot more cool stuff with the Google Drive API. For example, they will upload a confirmation fax to your Google Drive. You can also purchase, for example, phone numbers and receive all of your faxes through HelloFax. They're going to write all of those faxes you receive as PDF inside Google Drive directly. So this is all pretty nice features. When we launched Google Drive, there was 18 partners that were offering this deep UI integration, and I think you're going to find about 150 apps today, connectable to Google Drive, basically. There's of course a lot more application using the API on Android, on iOS, and on the web that are not as deeply integrated as these 150 apps. So you can find a lot more, but you can find a lot of cool applications, but there is also a lot of room still left for you to basically get noticed inside Google Drive. So if you're interested in learning more about this, I invite you to attend Stephen and Josh's session. The session is called Getting Your App Noticed Inside Google Drive. So they're going to talk about how, of course, you can get your app noticed inside Google Drive, but also how Google Drive can be an efficient way to drive traffic or drive users to your application. That's at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, we also wanted to allow you to very easily integrate with Google Drive. So we've built basically a bunch of widgets, and these widgets are common UI components that you can integrate very easily inside your web apps. Basically, usually, typically using a few lines of JavaScript or a few lines of HTML. And the first widget that we launched, actually, when we launched the API that was available a year ago, is the Google Picker. So the Google Picker is really a widget that allows your application, your users, to basically browse their file and select files inside Google Drive. That's basically the equivalent of if you were on a desktop application starting a file explorer process, to let your users select a file. So we basically wanted to bring the same easy integration experience to web applications online. The second widget that was launched actually at Google I/O last year, so a bit less than a year ago, is we call it the sharing dialog. So it's actually the same exact sharing dialog that you're going to find in web properties like Google Docs, Google Spreadsheets, or Google Slides, actually even in Google Drive. It's exactly the same UI, right? Except you're going to be able to use it inside your website, basically embedded inside your website, and let user share files directly from your website. So if you think about it, that's actually not so trivial to build, right? Because we have a nice feature like autocomplete here. We're actually the widget is also going to look at if your Google Apps administrator has enabled public sharing and display that option or not. It's also going to send an email to the people you've shared the document with, when you confirm. So all that is already built for you, and very easily, you can integrate this very easily inside your website. I think that's a few lines of JavaScript only. Also, the last widget that we launched, that was actually last week, is the Save to Drive button. So Save to Drive button is pretty simple, right? It basically allows your users to download a file directly to Google Drive, instead of having to download it locally and maybe re-upload it. That's all done basically in one operation. And what's really nice about that widget is that it's only really 2 lines of HTML. And I'm not kidding here. You copy paste those 2 lines of HTML and it should work pretty much for most of the files you could think about sharing. Think about downloading from your website. And I'm actually going to show you some of these widgets in action. The first app I wanted to show you is called Neutron Drive. Neutron Drive is a nice online IDE for Google Drive. It's nicely integrated with Google Drive. Let me switch to Neutron Drive. This is Neutron Drive. As you can see, I'm currently editing an HTML file in there. And if I wanted to open a file that's in my drive, I could click this button here, and Neutron Drive just pulls up the Google Picker, where I could simply open another file. What I could do also is, for example, share that file. If I right-click on the tab here and select sharing, you can see that's the embeddable sharing dialog that's inside Neutron Drive. And I could just share it with my friends or my colleagues. Also, the other widget was the Save to Drive button. O'Reilly was one of the launch partners for that button, so they had integrated the button at launch. That was just a week ago. And as you can see here, that's actually one of their free ebooks that you can download. And they've added a bunch of buttons, one for each of the file formats that you can download. Here, I'm simply going to download the PDF. You have to confirm. And as you can see, the PDF is downloading. It's actually a pretty big PDF. And once it's done, you can very simply open it within Google Drive. Let me just show you, since it should take just a second. Maybe. Yes. OK. As you can see, the PDF is now in my drive. And this is our PDF viewer. All right. So one of the features that we launched that actually got quite some attention was the ability for users to basically publish websites from Google Drive. So this feature is actually pretty simple to use. basically any folder that you would make public in Google Drive, the content of that folder would become directly accessible through a URL that you can see here on the screen, a special URL. And under that URL, basically all of the resources, all of the files, all of the documents that would be part of that folder would be accessible by path, basically, just like if they were served from a regular web server, basically. So some people did quite some interesting things with it, sorry. Actually, I'm going to go back to Neutron Drive, who is actually surfacing that feature directly from within their UI. So Neutron Drive has this nice file explorer who it's basically showing all of the files that are inside my drive here. And one of the things you can do is you can right-click on a folder and make it web viewable, they call it. So that basically makes the folder public, share it publicly. And once you've done that, you could simply right-click on any of the files that are inside that folder and click View Files. And that's going to open, for example, that HTML file I was working on directly as if it was served from a web server. And that's actually one other presentation I'm sometimes giving about OAuth 2.0. So as you can see, that's HTML5 slides here. It uses a bunch of JavaScript files, CSS, images, etc. So that's all working very nicely now that it's served directly from under that folder. Oh, let me go back, actually, to Neutron Drive. Sorry, to Neutron Drive. Yes, there was one more feature I wanted to show you on Neutron Drive here. Is let's say I'm in Neutron Drive and I'd like to work on a file with one of my colleagues named Bob. Bob is on the right-hand side of the screen here. That's Bob's computer, and I'm on the left. So what I could do is very simply share that file with Bob. His name is Bob Awesome. And as I just shared it, you can see that the file popped up in his drive. And he also has Neutron Drive installed. So he's going to open that file with Neutron Drive. And something very cool just happened is the two users, anonymous user, that's pretty strange. As you can see, those two users are put in real-time collaboration mode. Actually, I'm going to reload. I think there was a little bug. Shouldn't show anonymous. Okay, well. It's not the first time a demo fails at I/O, right? Okay. I think we have some real-time collaboration engineers in the room. Maybe they can do something. No, just kidding. So, well, if things were working correctly, actually, it's quite working, except we have this anonymous user issue here. But as you can see, the two users are put in real-time collaboration mode. Everything that if you select some text, the selection is actually shared and displayed to the other user, well, in one direction. Let's pretend it was working very nicely. You could also see, what the other user is typing live. So, that's all pretty much Google Docs-like real-time collaboration here. And actually, this very awesome feature, should be even more awesome if it was working nicely during the demos, is actually built using one of the APIs that we launched 2 months ago, which is the Google Drive RealTime API. So the Google Drive RealTime API is, as I said, basically, its goal is really to enable you to build real-time collaboration features, to implement real-time collaboration features in your web app very easily. So I've actually used the API myself. It's very nice. It really feels like using regular JavaScript objects, except those objects are really shared amongst collaborators. And the API really takes care of a lot of issues for you, like persistence or conflict resolution, or of course, the broadcasting and delivery of modifications to all of the collaborators. It also does undo, redo, presence. You get the list of people who have your document open at the time. So this is a very, very cool API. It's actually one of the APIs I'm the most excited about. It's really advanced web technology made easy for you. So you guys should really check it out if your app could use some real-time collaboration features. All makes it really easy for you. And I actually wanted to show you another app called Draw.io. We have the founder here on the third row, which is a cool diagramming application that also uses the Google Drive RealTime API to implement real-time collaboration. So here is Draw.io. I've actually already shared my drawing document with Bob, who is here on the right. And as I drop basically elements here on the page, you can see them, just popping up, on Bob's computer. I'm actually really bad at making these drawings. And you get very nice visual cues of what the other collaborators is doing. You also have this little chat here. I can chat with Bob. Hey, Bob. What's up? So that chat window was actually implemented using the Google Drive real-time APIs. So if you think about it, a chat window could be almost as simple as a collaborative or shared list of strings, right? So using the real-time API, that was actually quite nice to implement. Hopefully. All right, that was Draw.io. If you're interested in learning more about the Google Drive real-time API, you guys should attend Brian and Cheryl's talk, which is at 2:35 p.m. tomorrow. Yes, they're in the room. It's going to be a great talk. So I think they're not only going to talk about how you can use the API yourself as a developer, but they'll talk a little bit about how the API works, really. So you'll learn about things like operational transforms and a lot of cool things like that. You guys should really check it out if you're interested. All right, so one of the other features that we launched that was actually a month ago is there was actually two features. And we really wanted to allow applications to write data they have complete control over. So let me explain a bit. As you all know, Google Drive is a user-managed cloud storage that would typically mean that the user has total control over the files that are in his Google Drive, right? He could go ahead and read any of the files, delete or modify any of the files that is in his drive. What this feature is, sorry, and it's not always the best. It's not always working for every use case. Let's say you have a web application and you'd like to write a configuration file to Google Drive. Well, you wouldn't really want the user to go ahead and mess up that configuration file. Maybe that would make your application have some issues when it loads. And probably the user doesn't even want to see that file in the first place, right? He's going to be like, what the hell is this configuration file again? I haven't created that. Same goes for a web-based game, for example. What if a game would want to save save game state to the user's drive, right? He wouldn't really want the user to be able to go and potentially change what's inside that save game state, right? So the user could go and change his gold coins or something, cheat basically. So it's not always working for every use case to give total control to the user basically. So to mitigate this, we launched a couple of features. The first one is called the app data folder. The app data folder is basically a hidden folder that is only accessible to your application, basically. It's really private to your app. The user doesn't even see it. It's really hidden. So that really means that the user cannot see what's inside that folder, cannot read the files, cannot go and modify these files. The only thing that the user can actually see is the amount of data that your application is using. And he sees that inside the Manage Apps dialog, as you can see here on the screen, just an example. The only action that a user can take is to wipe entirely the data. So you can just basically reset the data for an app, or you could also uninstall the app that would also wipe the folder. So that's the app data folder. Oh, and by the way, in Ali's talk that's today at 4:25 p.m., called Using Drive as a Storage Solution in Android, Ali is going to basically explain how you can use the app data folder effectively on Android. For example, to save the state of your Android app across devices. That's really something that developers have wanted to do for a long time. Save the state of your app across devices. You can now do that through Drive with the app data folder. So if you're interested, you should really show up at Ali's talk today. All right, the second feature that allows your application to write basically app that they control is called the custom file properties. So custom file properties is basically a way for you to attach metadata to a file itself in Google Drive. So there is also, and there is an option to actually make that metadata private to your app so that only your app can read it and access it and modify it. That's actually very great for the use cases where you would actually have to keep, for example, a folder or files in sync with your own system. You could actually write, for example, the ID of the file in your own system and directly attach that to the application, make that private so nobody else can modify it or read it. So, basically just like you were attaching a foreign key to a Google Drive file. That's called custom file properties. All right, and that was actually all of the major features that we launched this year, concerning Google Drive. And we're working on a lot more cool features as well. One of the next features that is coming up is called push notifications. So hopefully this is coming very, very soon. I'm saying that because I think we also announced it last year. So hopefully this will be available very, very soon. Push notification is really a way for your application to get notified when something changes in the user's Google Drive. So for example, when a user modifies a file or adds a new file or deletes a file in his drive, you could potentially be notified by a server-to-server call. So that really solves some of the issues where basically if your application wanted to know if something has changed in the user's drive, they would have to check basically poll every 5 minutes, let's say, or every half an hour, or every day to see if something has changed. Well, now you won't have to do that anymore with push notifications. You will basically almost in real time get notified when something has changed in the user's drive, and potentially then get faster notification, take faster action. And it's a win-win because for us, you also put less strain probably on our servers instead of polling every 5 minutes or every 30 minutes. You'll just have to wait until a notification arrives. There's of course a lot more we're working on. If you'd like to actually be one of the first to try all of the new upcoming features, you should really join our SDK Early Access program. The SDK Early Access program, we've been, basically all of the features that we've launched in the past 6 months have been available early to our Early Access program members. For example, the push notification system that I just talked to you about is currently being tested by our EAP, we call them, Early Access program members. So, if you're interested in in Drive and want to try out some really cool technology before they launch, and also help us, make those features right, you should really try and join our Early Access program. So, for example, one of the RealTime API was really one of the features that really used some good feedback from our Early Access programs members, and that they really made some feature happen. They really helped test the integration. They helped also show other developers what can be potentially done with it, so that we usually, during the launch announcements, we point to the apps, show what they can do with it. So, thanks again to our currently existing Early Access program members, and if you're interested, check out our technical documentation on developers.google.com and apply. Conclusion. So, as you've seen, we launched Google Drive a year ago. Our goal was really not to make it a very simple, data API only. We really wanted to bring a lot more to you that, a simple programmatic access to your files. Really wanted, we're bringing some. We have this nice user interface integration within our file explorer. We also have all these widgets. We even have a RealTime API now, which is really, really awesome, and you should check it out. That's really groundbreaking. And there's, again, as I said, a lot more coming up. So you guys should really, look for what we're doing, read our blog. That's where we do all the announcements. And keep building really cool apps with it. So links, you can find all of the links to the technologies and integration points that I've talked about today during this talk. if you would like to sign up to the early access program, for example, that's here. Also point to all the other technologies, RealTime API. You should also go to all of the sessions, the related sessions. Today there is using Drive as a storage solution on Android by Ali. And tomorrow there is getting your app noticed inside Google Drive and the RealTime API deep dive talk. These two are tomorrow. All right, that's it. I'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you very much. Question.
Hey, Nicholas, Charlie Wood from Spain.
Hello. Oh, hello.
So you showed how users can connect apps to Drive.
Yep.
Can domain admins do that on behalf
Not
of their
yet.
users?
Not yet. It's really something that that we want domain admins to be able to do. So your question is really, can a domain admin like connect an app for all of the users of his domain, basically in like one operation? It's something we want to do. It's something we're working on, but it's not available today, unfortunately. So it's coming up. Any other questions in the room? Yes.
Hi, Nicholas. It's
Hello.
Min from Smart Technologies. We're using the RealTime API to create a collaborative whiteboarding application. And
Sorry, what is your application doing?
It's a collaborative whiteboarding application.
Okay, whiteboarding. Cool.
Yes. So we're very impressed with it so far. However, we're kind of wondering, in terms of storing data using the shared real-time data model, we're kind of reaching limits in terms of how much data we can put in that shared model. Just wondering what type of practices we should employ to kind of overcome that problem.
So what is the limit you're reaching? Is that the limit per real-time model, basically, or
Yes,
there's also?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think what's the limit? Actually, we have engineers for working on that on the Google Drive real-time API, so maybe they can take that question.
Yeah, I'm Brian Cairns. I'm an engineer on the real-time API. Right now, we have a roughly 10 megabyte limit. It's not fixed in stone. We're actually working to make it a little more clear. You'll have insight into exactly how much data you're using in the model, so you can understand where you might be using space and reduce that. And we're looking at increasing that limit over time as performance allows. But for now, the limit would be 10 megs.
You have pretty big whiteboards, I guess. Is there any other questions in the room? Yes.
Hello, my name's Martin. I have a couple of questions. One is the file picker that you released is very useful if you're looking for a file but not a folder.
Yeah, we know.
I didn't know you knew. I wondered if you had any updates for us.
Yeah, it's something we've been requesting. It's currently being worked on. So the issue is that you cannot, basically you can browse, and if you double click on a folder, it's just going to open that folder, but you cannot select a folder per se. Yes. But yeah, we've heard lots of requests for that feature. It's been worked on. Not sure exactly when it will be ready, but definitely some people are working on that.
Another related question is, if we had the application data folder, the custom metadata, and we wanted to share that from one user to another, we've been looking at something where we were storing a folder in Drive so that we could use all that sharing, use the sharing widget and share it across, but then the user has to have a file, and that's kind of ugly. So I was wondering if you could advise if there's a way around having a file.
So is your issue like when there is a file inside the app data folder, basically you cannot share it? Is that your current issue, or?
So I hadn't realized that there was the sharing widget that you already have.
Yeah.
So I haven't played exactly with that. But I guess we were putting a file that was publicly visible so that users could share the configuration they've set up with some people they want to collaborate with. So say, here it's all set up for you, here it is. But if they could not need to see that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, well, in that case, you could, you can of course try to, create your own user interface, right, for sharing. That's probably what you've been doing is using the API that our programmatic,
Well, we used the file so that users could use the existing sharing interface for the file,
Yeah.
just go and share at that level, but then the user has to understand files, and
Yeah.
that's risky.
Yes, it's true. Or, but what you could probably do is, instead of using the sharing dialog, which is really, it's really file oriented. We tell you the user, hey, you want to share that file? Who do you want to share it with? You could maybe probably build your own user interface and provide your own sharing, right? And you don't have to use the word file if you don't want to use it, right? You could just say, hey, want to copy that configuration file that your friend has shared with you. And you could actually share the file or make a new copy. It's probably what you want to do for a configuration file. But basically, build your own sharing UI would probably be better for you in that sense. Yeah. You want to take the microphone? Yeah. Yeah, I think related to app data, JDR, our tech lead on Google Drive, wants to say something.
Yeah, sorry. At the moment, app data is completely private on the theory that it was private to the app, so we weren't imagining any scenarios wherein people would want to share it. So thank you for surfacing this important use case. And we'll talk it over as soon as we're out of here and figure out how to help you out.
Yeah. Basically, sharing is disabled for files that are inside the app data folder, if you wanted to use the app data folder. So as I said, what you can probably do right now, if you want to have something working right now, is really copy that file to the app data the app data folder of the other user. That'd be the only way. Yep. Thanks for your question. Yes. Spreadsheets. Oh my God. Go ahead.
Can we, I don't know if it's the right form, can we have a more granular kind of a security on maybe some groups or users cannot change a row or a column value?
Sorry, can you just, I didn't get your question entirely.
Like
Yes.
a group cannot change a column value in A or B. I know a spreadsheet now has to be shared. It cannot have a particular intersection locked for some users.
So you'd like to share a spreadsheet, right?
But
with a
not-
group,
Yes.
an entire group. I think that's possible today, right? Have you been facing issues with this?
For a particular column. I want.
Oh, you want to share just a column with a group? Well, I'm not a perfect expert on Google Spreadsheet. I think you can. I'm not sure no, I don't think that's possible today. What you can do is, I think, restrict column, like block columns or something. I'm not a super expert, so I don't think that's possible today, but potentially if you file a feature request and enough people want the same feature, we might build it. I don't think you can basically share per column, right? There's no like sharing per column, unfortunately, right now.
So as I understood, like the app data is private to an
Yes.
application, but can I write app scripts which can access that app data?
Oh, good question. Engineering team, can we access app data through AppScript? No, I don't. So I don't think so because, well, through AppScript you're not really. Well, actually, can we? That would be an app data just private to AppScript. So the point with app data is that it's private to an application, right? So you have to use your application credentials to really access it. Through AppScript, we could potentially make it available. I don't know if it's possible today. I don't think it is. JDR will confirm or not. But
I just pinged the guy that works on the AppScript integration with Drive to double check this, but I'm pretty sure that the way we work, right, we do use the same Google Drive API you're using to access Google Drive from AppScript. So if it's not possible, it's only a limitation in the interface we've designed. So it is in principle possible. We may not have the interface quite ready. You should attend John McGowan's talk later today about AppScript integration with Drive, where he will go into these topics in great detail, and he's the expert on this.
Yeah, and you can ask him. And if that was working, I think all of your AppScript scripts would basically share the same app data, right? Because that would be seen as the same application through the API. I think that's how it would work. Is there any other questions? Yes.
You have the really awesome feature of publishing the HTML from Drive. Is there any way we can just have that for Google Apps users so it could be restricted to a domain?
So I know the team has been, has been wanting to make this work with the sharing settings, right? Right now, it only works for public. You have to make the folder public. I think they were speaking about, also allowing it for even protected documents, so that you could share, for example, a folder just with your domain. That would be, then the website will only be available to your domain. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how far they are with this, or if they're still going into this direction, basically. I have to double check, but that's something they wanted to do from the start. It's just harder. Yeah, it's harder. It's all on a subdomain, so you have to know who's signed in. So that's it's a bit technically harder. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming and listening.